short vid on firearms, shotgun chokes. Get an experienced gunsmith to help you with any of this, because they'll pretty much convince you to have them do it, because breaking or damaging something that's firing high velocity objects is a major safety concern. So don't break a firearm. We're going to be dealing with 12 gauge only in the video. And we're going to be talking about choke tubes that are threaded in by going into the barrel. There are some that go on the outside of the barrel and essentially act as a barrel extension and have various, constrictions to them. But the purpose of it is it goes from whatever the bore diameter of the barrel is, whatever caliber it is, and makes it smaller for the last inch or so or whatever, so that it forces shot to be reduced down in the diameter it comes out of the barrel. And the idea is to make a tighter pattern on target. It can also have the exact opposite effect. Now, depending on what barrel you start off with and what its actual caliber is, we're going to use caliber instead of gauge. They have different levels of constriction from maximum to minimum. If you're not aware of it, a 12 gauge is around or very close to 73 caliber, 0.73 inches. It's actually supposed to be on the dot 0.729 inches inner diameter throughout the majority of the barrel. Shotguns are so ridiculously variable and customizable that there's no true standard. But the idea is that it should be at minimum that size, not smaller. Now, in the United States, we have an organization called SAMI, S-A-M-M-I or S-M-I-I, or I forget which one it is, but they've decided that 12 gauge is actually 0.725 inches. That's a significant difference, depending on who you talk to. But people in the United States buy guns that have interior diameters that are nowhere near these. Like some shotguns will be 0.726, very small. Others will be 0.74, an entire caliber larger, and still calling it 12 gauge, which technically at that point it would be. But again, anything like SAMI where it's 0.725 or whatever, it really seems a little bit odd to call it 12 gauge, but it's still in the range. Now, for the 74 caliber barrels, how much choke is considered full, extreme, uber, mega choke or whatever? I looked up the choke tubes that are commonly available over the last 20 years, because choke tubes that are sold more often are the ones that people find useful. The maximum restriction from 74 caliber is basically 69 and a half, 0.695 inches at the muzzle, down from 0.74 inches. And when we get to the SAMI spec ones, which most of them don't even come near that because they don't want to be literally on the dot 0.725 inches, the constriction goes down to 0.681. Basically it goes from 72 and a half caliber down to 68 caliber. And if it starts at 74 caliber, it squeezes down for the last little bit of the barrel to 0.69 or 69 and a half caliber. Noise. So anyway, the most extreme chokes I found, which aren't the most popular, but it's the most extreme ones I saw that were sold enough to make a difference to be listed, were 0.67 at the muzzle, which is a really, really extreme choke. Now, what do these do? It's different for every barrel. If you buy a gun from the same company, you'll have different results, because we're dealing with chaos theory here. You're firing something at a high velocity that's got a lot of mostly randomly positioned round spheres made out of a compliant lead material coming out and going through the air on that day with that air pressure, with that temperature. You're going to have a lot of variabilities. Now, a lot of the chokes are either permanently built in or they're threaded in. Most are threaded in by boring out the end of the barrel slightly with some sort of tool to get it a little bit wider, and then using a tap to thread the interior of it with a certain pattern. The majority of them are 32 threads per inch, but that's just the majority sold that year in the United States. It's not throughout time, but 32 threads per inch is used for Remington, Winchester, Mossberg, Weatherby, and some Browning guns. Browning Invector uses a diameter that's 53/64 or 0.828 inches, So if you took out the choke, you could take a 12 gauge shell, which is .81 something at the base and .79 something at the end of it. And if it could stick in there when you pull out the choke, that might be a Browning Invictor. Now, the most common one at 32 threads per inch for Winchester, Remington, Mossberg, Weatherby, that sort of thing. The ones you find on Amazon are almost exactly the right diameter for a shotgun shell to go into, but just slightly too small. Meaning you could actually use them almost like a ream to really get really close to the chamber diameter if you were making your own barrel. But I pretty much suspect it's to keep some idiot from stuffing a shotgun shell in the end and then going, let's fire it and see what happens. And the diameter goes from .814 to .812 to .809. Now that's the high part of the thread, low part of the thread, and the middle area. And between those companies, the thread shape can be different. Some of them are triangular, some are rounded off, some are square, some are weird shapes where they have a kind of a flat surface and a you know, like a sawtooth effect. There's some variations of it. I couldn't find any definitive data, but it's 32 threads per inch, and it's called a 13/16 tap, to do the job. And a couple of companies make a tap kit to where you can put in almost all of them. They don't recommend it because it might ruin the barrel. Now, the minimum outer diameter for the barrel has to be measured. 0.85 inches is considered minimum at the muzzle if you're going to start doing this process. I would dare say it'd be better if it's thicker. But there's also a minimum diameter on the inside. Now, with the SAMI specs, they allow you to be down to 0.725 inches. Because I guess they think that's okay. But the minimum inner diameter that a lot of them want for some of the guns is like 0.73 inches or a little bit bigger. That way it's not too small. That way you don't have a big jump or it's the wrong size and it runs into the choke tube and shoots out. So the outer diameter's the main one is 0.85 inches. Measure it with a caliper or something and get it right. And if it's not that size or bigger, don't consider doing this. And some of the companies put out ones for just the ones that are thin or just a smaller diameter at the end. Tru-Chokes come in at 0.775 inches and for thin-walled barrels, and the bigger one is 0.795. Not 0.8, but pretty close. And those do 44 threads per inch. Browning Invector uses an oddball size as well, 0.828. Like I said, you could shove the shotgun shell into it. And Beretta Mobil choke, 1 millimeter spacing on the threads metric, 20.8 millimeter tap size. So why did I do this video? Okay, number one, I thought I had a video doing this subject and I can't find it on my channel. So it's either been deleted mysteriously or I just put the wrong titling in. I don't think I do that. So I did this video, number one. Number two, 32 threads per inch and about the same size as a shotgun shell, but just a bit too tight is the most common. And larger than that is somewhat more common. Possibly, maybe. But most of them try to keep from doing that so you don't stick a shotgun shell in the muzzle of your gun by like an idiot and pull a trigger and find out how bad of an idea it is. And again, barrel inner diameters for the supposed standard of 12 gauge, which is supposed to be 0.729 or around or very close to 73 caliber, vary anywhere from 72.5 caliber, which SAMI actually lists as the minimum, all the way up to 74 caliber for your Mossberg shockwaves and such. And choke tubes go down to 68 or 69 caliber rather regularly, and even 67 at the muzzle to try to get the shot pattern to work a certain way. And yes, when you look up the information, each of them calls different choke tubes they make with different diameters the same thing on some charts. So I'll have a link to one of those. Anyway, that's it for the video, and I'm just going to say a bigger or smaller than the size of a shotgun shell and 32 threads per inch is about what you're going to be looking for. Well, have a good day. Bye.